great expertise in the area of power sector. Hardly there is a day when we don't come across his contribution. Professor Anand will be joining us tomorrow, the former member secretary, who is at JNU now, the School of Economics. Mr. Mandal, who is a PhD fellow, has done considerable work on your energy use and using directional approach in energy. Professor Dr. Balram Murthy, again I get sentimental, my own director. He has treated me as his own child. And Dr. Balram Murthy, I think, followed a different approach. When I think he was almost, we are in problem, then he came with, I think, this nuclear solution. And I think with this nuclear blast, he eliminated all the problems of the institute and, developed a great camaraderie in the institute. Sir, we follow your footsteps and we always remember you. And the guidance that you gave will lead us, I think, for many years. Yoga Josna, Mr. Shri Kumar, Dr. B.S. Negi, Shri Narsingh, Dr. Indrakan, Dr. Kishdakar Reddy, Dr. Hema, Shri Jainaman, Shri Nagayach, Dr. Jatindra Khanna, Professor S.P. Singh, Council Member of ICSR, and Shri Devendra Shah, Special Chief Secretary, Government of Karnataka. I'll just take half a minute. I think ICSR has been extremely kind to bring IP to this forum. Energy related issues are very, very important for India. Sir, because with Shankar I am on the oil sector company board, and we noted that only public sector oil companies last year were given a subsidy of 3 lakh crores, which is 1% of our, almost 1% of our GDP. I have gone through Mr. Shankar's contribution, and these contributions, they point out that at this rate, I think next 30 years, we'll be energy deficient. We require 90% of imports of oil in our country. There will be 50% shortage of, I think, gas, and at this rate, we'll also fall short of our resources in the area of power sector. Mr. Shankar's thesis, which he has been, I think, arguing on different, fora, is that, we are all rich, but I think there is a problem. I think there are economists in this country, they have not taken it, I think, they have not understood, I think, what he wants to say. Can we go from coal to oil? I think that's a very, very important issue. Coal, methane, and several, I think, points that are coming, but we see that in our trade also, I think. Last year, our imports were more than 1,30,000 crore. Now, this shows that energy, I think, is a very, very important issue. And when you talk to energy security, there is a question of availability of the quantum, quality, location, prices, and also mix. And then environmental issues are also coming to the fore. We may produce, but we produce for today. But whether we will be able to sustain it tomorrow or not, we don't know. Whether it is human friendly or not, we do not know. So these are, I think, very, very important issues. And there comes the question of supply disruption. If supply disruption takes place, what will happen to our country? Market risks, prices are going up and down, and I don't think we can provide any forward cover. And what will happen to our BOP situation there? Then there is the question of alternative sources of energy. Should we do that or not? We talk of solar energy, but for that we require per megawatt, I think, a hectare of land. Now, can we improve upon those things? Can we talk of now renewable sources of energy? And there I think Professor Malirao has made a very, very great contribution. And here is a person who talks of Russia and India. Now these two countries, they have been friends for years together. But when we say that, we also have to keep China, I think, behind us. And India's energy, total power sector production is 140,000 MW. There are T&D losses. And I understand that China is now building up a power plant in the Yunnan province, and one power plant is going to produce alone 100,000 MW. Almost 70% of the installed capacity in India, or 90% of what India produces. So I think there are very, very great challenges. And Professor Malirao, I think, he takes a very interesting line. Can India and Russia? Now Russian scenario is different. 20 years back, situation was different. Now today Russia, as a non-OPEC country, has come out with a big bang. And OPEC country has to take note of the Russian policies. And at times, OPEC countries had to revise their policies of pricing and also production and keeping the reserves. Let's say Aramco in Saudi Arabia. So I think, and Russia is surplus of power, surplus of gas. So can we have a cooperation in the field of, let's say, exploration? It's a very, very important area. Mr. Malvi, I think, whole of his life went into exploration. But Nehru and Mr. Shankar, I think, they are the people of, those years. And one of them is present with us. So exploration, I think, is a big issue. And then is the problem of production. So as a member of ONGC, this committee on restructuring, ONGC doesn't have any risks today. What to talk of others? Though they have sufficient cash, they have a profit of about 40,000 crore, post-tax profit, but they don't have money, they don't have the ability of risks. So can Russia and India explore the possibility of cooperation in production? Then there is a question of transportation now. We have the question of gas line. And there is a paper on Siberia, which is a very, very interesting paper. Now, how the gas line can come? And can we make it a viable proposition? And then there is a question of research. Can the two countries come together and take up research on renewable sources of energy, non-renewable sources of energy, also processes and systems? Not only production is important, people are important, systems are important, practices are important. So these are very, very important issues, and we will be very delighted that Balaji, my colleague, has gone through all the papers, and he has formulated on our advice issues for different sections. They are just, illustrative. They are not exhaustive kind of thing, but they are very much there. We look forward to a very stimulating and a very, very interesting discussion. But before I sit, let me once again express our gratitude to Professor Javed Adam, Mr. Shankar, Mr. Aditya, Professor Rebiko, and Balaji, all the dignitaries who have come from Russia, all our paper writers, our human writer, Dr. Balram Murthy, and all my colleagues over here. Thank you.
Sir, for your very touchy, emotional welcome address, and also raising some important issues with regard to energy. I now request Professor Rebiko to give his address. Sir.
I feel happy to be here at this extremely important seminar, which was, the subject was discussed long ago, and it's wonderful, this dream about convening this seminar is coming into life. On behalf of the Russian delegation, I want to express our sincere thanks for the hospitality, for the welcome, and for the usual kindness. When you come to India, it's usually you feel a very special atmosphere. And it is not whether it is not important whether it is hot or extremely hot or unbearably hot in India. It is always warm. Warm because your heart is always warm towards your guest. It is too early to speak about this conference, and I think tomorrow we'll have an opportunity to say words on the basis of already experienced discussion and exchange of views. But in my opinion, the subject of this seminar is really vitally important for the whole world. And we are really glad that in coming with this seminar, we actually comes back to the tradition already existed. We come to the continuity of our relations with our Indian colleagues. Of course, the major part of the Russian delegation is represented by the Institute of Oriental Studies, which is not actually the institute who deals with the problem of energy and, of course, of security. Though our former director, Mr. Primakov, was the first man in security service of our country. But this subject is so important for the mankind. And when we are talking about any conference, we must say a few words about the subject, a few words about the place and the time of this conference. Well, the place is wonderful because Hyderabad is a very interesting mixture. Sorry if you will not agree with me, you know, I'm coming for almost 45 years to India, but it happened so this is the first time I came to Hyderabad. And it looks like a city with its own face, but the face is, half of this is an ancient Hyderabad, with a wonderful balconies and all the buildings and Charminar and so on. And the second is a high-tech and the modern face. And this is, in a way, is representing the whole India. The high technology of India is in the country which is many thousands years old. And one thing which is probably not seen at the conferences like this, India is a very young country, the country of youth. And this is also important when we are thinking about the future. The subject, as I said, it's really important for the mankind because, well, energy is a sort of blood of mankind, especially in the contemporary world. So we come to the question of time, and this is the time when we are, in a way, at the crossroads, where the mankind will go. And it is very important that the voice advising our leaders and leaders of other countries will come from Hyderabad, from India, from joint venture of Russia and India. I like so much, because I'm an old man, I'm the man of the time of Hindu-Russian High. I'm very glad to see again these two words standing in one line, Russia and India. Now I said a few words about our institute, that it is not really deals with the problems of energy. Though you will see that I'm not right today afternoon and tomorrow, because the people from our institute wrote some very interesting papers. But I want to mention one thing, that probably you don't know that our institute is 190 years old. We celebrated this day last December. So now we are already thinking about 200 university, but it is probably still too early. Now, why I mention our institute? Because not only members of our institute are in our delegation, but some other institutes of Academy of Science of Russia. Because in short, brief meetings here, I noticed already that our Indian colleagues are quite eager to establish or re-establish relations with our institute, because we can cooperate with any other institution in India, and we can be of some use for you, not only because we have some brains, not only because we know, we have some knowledge about India and probably less but about Russia, but we have the direct access to the parliament, to the office of Prime Minister and to the President. And we are part of a huge organization, Academy of Science. So we have more than 96 organizations which are centered on our institute all over Russian Federation. But besides this, we have, I repeat, the direct access to different institutions in physics and chemistry and any science, and especially, of course, humanitarian sciences, but also to some other. So, in case you want to cooperate with your Russian colleagues, and I'm sure you want it, please come to our institute. We will be very glad to help you and to participate in these joint ventures. Now may I wish all success to this conference. The success means not only exchange of views, but also probably some conclusions, some recommendations, and let the voice of this conference be heard on the top level of India and Russia and the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your address. And it's very heartening for Hyderabad, as you have learned Hyderabad. And you also said that the subject, energy itself, is very important for the existence of mankind. Thank you very much, sir, for your address. I now request Dr. T.L. Shankar to give his inaugural address.
Professor Hyderabad, Professor Jain, Mr. Dr. R.K. Mishra, Dr. Balaji, and my dear friends. It is an emotional day for people like us who have been associated with this institute. Dr. Mishra's opening remarks reminded me of the day when I voluntarily gave up the position of the Secretary to the Government of Andhra Pradesh in the Department of Industries and took over the directorship of the Institute of Public Enterprise, which was totally in a different shape. There were 3 professors, of which Dr. Mishra is one. The 2 others are not here. And the budget, very generously contributed by the ICSSR in those days, was about 1.5 lakhs per year. And our total budget was about 4 lakhs. So they all said, what are we going to do? So we sat down and we drew up a plan. And from this and the very hard work that my colleagues, even though the government insisted on my coming back to government, I put one condition, that I should be allowed to retain my position as the honorary director of the Institute of Public Enterprise. This position continued for 12 years, not only when I served the government here, but even when I served the government of India as the Director General of the Institute of the National Institute of Rural Development. If today, if I had come here, it is a call of the family. I have been avoiding giving lectures for the last 3 years because I find that there is almost one seminar or the other on energy in India. And as the oldest man performing in this area, I am being invited. I think it's a matter of courtesy. And we say the same things. And as happens, the performance of the Indian energy sector is good in parts, but it is still very inadequate. And in that, we have a lot of things to learn from Russia, and that will be the topic of my talk today. I may also remind that I was closely associated with Indo-Soviet discussions on planning and on issues of development. And I have been to the Institute of Oriental Studies. I met with the professors twice or thrice in my various visits to that place. So it is a great pleasure to come back. You always have this very shocking experience, but you leave your young daughter in a boarding school and you hear about the growth, the performance, but after 8-9 years, you see her, and that is the joy of life. When you see the growth, just not in terms of the post, but the actual person. Today, when I see IPE as of today, I have purposely not visited visitors. That's what I am doing it for NIRD also. I am greatly impressed, and I think much of it owes to the sustained interest and the loving care which Dr. Mishra has spent on this institute. It is but right that we should come again to Russia to learn many things. We have several experiences when we were dealing with the institute, the public enterprise, in trying to learn about public enterprises. In fact, the biodata or the CV that was sent was a wrong CV. If I had sent the CV which I used to circulate when I was here, it would cite a large number of joint publications which Dr. Mishra and other colleagues had. And there were several attempts to see that the Institute of Public Enterprise is not a social research institute. We sat down and started that we will give a series of publications. At one time, we had per faculty more publications than any other institute, many in the form of books and contributions to conferences, and several earlier presentations on the problems of public enterprise in the Economic and Political Weekly were sent out from our institute. And that convinced my old guru, Mr. G. Parsarthi, who was then the chairman of the ICSSR, that this has to be an institute, and being greatly interested in public sector, he said you start only the public sector studies and make it correct. And the time is very right, and the reason for this we will see in a minute. We all know, as it has been emphasized, energy is the basis for economic development. And when countries start growing fast, their energy needs grow very fast. And suddenly we are taken by the events and we find ourselves in an energy crisis at the national level. The three countries which have grown very fast and a very large population and represent the Asian and European region are India, China and Russia. But in the discussions in India, we have always been concentrating on India and China because of the close proximity and because of the fact that both these countries have always been considered as developing countries, whereas Russia was a developed country as a major power. It had a checkered political career in the last three decades, and I had the good fortune of following it up here and visiting Russia. And today, in the 21st century, we always say it is the century of India. It's also the century of Russia in Europe. Russia has emerged as the fastest growing nation in Europe, not by way of preparations and the Marshall Plan and others, but by devotion to its own growth and by developing the resources it had, which had not received earlier attention. Therefore, in the current context, in view of our great friendship, we all know India and Russia have a long history of close friendship and association in our efforts to ensure prosperity and peace in the world. Old men like me recall those days of a polarized world. In the current situation, Russia has become a net exporter of energy, whereas India, in spite of commendable growth rates, continues to be a country importing energy and always facing shortages. It is at this rate at this time most appropriate that the institute in Russia and the institute here and the scientific research institutions of India and Russia have thought about bringing these scholars together on the issue of energy also. It's most appropriate. We have had growth somehow or the other at 8 to 9%, but our energy situation is not a very happy one. In fact, I often stand before audiences, Indian audiences, and apologize for whatever contributions I have made to the mess that is Indian energy sector. Let us be very frank. A quick examination of India's energy situation and what it has been in the past. Maybe I'll only take about 10 minutes more. Just first slide. This is next one. Next. If you see, we had from 1980 to 2005, 2006. This is the consumption of fuels in India. You don't have to take great note of that. What is important to show is that while in the early 60s and 70s, even to sustain a growth of about 3 to 4% at the maximum, we had to have a very high rate of energy consumption. But in the 80s, it came to a certain solid state, and we find that from 80 to 90, 2005, which is a 25-year period, we have had a steady growth rate, which is expressed in terms of million tons of oil equivalent, so as to see what is the relative share of contribution from relative fuels. Otherwise, you will have to aggregate tons of coal with cubic meters of gas and kilowatt hours of electricity. Energy consumption required per unit of GDP, which is called the elasticity of energy consumption, has been coming down and reaching levels which are closer to developed countries. Therefore, the first slide, the earlier slide, we can skip it. That is, it was 97, that is the total energy requirements per 1 unit of GDP was 9.7 earlier. In the last 10 years, it has come to 0.74. In terms of electricity, for 1 unit of GDP, we required 1.2% growth. That is 1% growth in energy, in GDP. We required 1.24% in terms of electricity. In the last decade, it has come to 0.98. So the energy situation does, in spite of the mess that I referred to, that we need. So there have been these exercises give you the opportunity and the basis for projecting the future. I am sure Professor Lexology and others will be talking about it. I will just flag a few issues. Next slide. So the various forecasts of India's energy demand were so varying that it was very true in the sense that some assumed a 4% growth of energy of GDP right up to 1930, because whatever surplus growth rates that we had was considered as aberrations, and our growth rate will be confined to the Hindu rate of about 4%.
To be chair of this session, I like India very much. It's not my first visit to India. I worked for several years on the desk of Russia, China, India, and so on and so on. Well, and we also discussed this problem in this our meetings
in New Delhi. I would like to mention that Russian Academy of Sciences shares the general energy-related concern, which has multiple aspects, facets, and dimensions. Let me briefly address some assessments of the situation being discussed these days in the academic community of my country. Leading experts of the Russian Academy of Sciences see the hierarchy of threats for the global energy security as the following. First, the offer of energy starts to lag behind the growing consumption. Second, the growing tension in supplies for energy needs of the transport sector. Third, the growing energy disproportions by regions. Fifth, the ever more difficult areas of energy supply as an implication of regions and on the planet at large. As emphasized by specialists, headed by academician Vladimir Fortov, who was awarded by special prize of global energy in an international award. They wrote that it would not be possible to ensure the global energy security without a dialogue and multi-openness in the level of states, business, community, and population. Meanwhile,